Welcome to the Needy and Normal podcast. I'm your host, Ashley Levering, mom, wife, and life coach. After hours of coaching and learning from my own life, one thing is clear: meeting your needs is essential for a better life. Here, we'll talk about your needs and not only learn to accept them, but also tend to them without guilt. Let's get needy, because it's normal. I'm back to my favorite recording spot in the house. I don't know why it took me so long to get back here. I like sitting in the kitchen where the dog is at my feet and I can look out the window, especially today. It is blustery and not super freezing, but it is a fall day. When this comes out, it will be October 24th because episodes come out every Thursday. And I'm all cozy right now in my kitchen with my hot coffee. And if you're listening to this in your kitchen with a hot cup of coffee or somewhere cozy, or maybe you're driving somewhere, but you need a minute to just look out. Is it beautiful where you are? Do you have some fall colors? Is it already winter by the time you're talking? By the time you're listening to this, I'm talking, you're listening. But either way, I don't know. There's something cozy about getting all set up and, the way you want to before you do a certain thing, whether it's listening to a podcast or settling in for your work day, whatever it is. But either way, you're here now, and I'm so glad. And I'm excited to do this episode. I actually am going to walk you through a product that I will be selling through my business. Obviously, we'll just kind of skim the surface, but I wanted to do this because I feel like everybody needs a little life check. And sometimes it's really confirming and really exciting to go through these pillars, that I call them pillars, and know, oh my gosh, like I'm on the right track. How cool. And then sometimes it's good to go through these things because you realize that a couple of them or one part, one piece in particular is not fitting. And that can be eye-opening, and that can send you a message of, hey, like pay a little attention, more attention. It's windy. Thank you. God bless me. But it's good to do a check-in and see if maybe there's some pieces of your life that need some attention. And noticing what might not be fitting and what might need attention might be something that you can look at on your own and assess on your own and choose some action on your own. And some of these might be kind of overwhelming, and it might feel like, ooh, maybe this is the part I knew I had, to look at this part of my life, and I don't know if I can do all that by myself, and maybe you need some support. So both are correct, right? If you're able to do things on your own, do things on your own. If you need some support, get support. There's no shame in that. I've talked about having support on the podcast before being a wildly successful move, right? People like Oprah have never done everything completely by themselves. So if part of today's episode strikes you in the career or the life purpose department and you feel like that needs more attention from you, maybe that means, going and finding some support to further yourself into a better spot where when you come back, hopefully, and do this life assessment on your own, you think, yeah, okay, I got it now. I'm good. I'm on the right track. It's very validating. But also, I want to tell you too, as I move through this is a chance for you to think in your own mind as you're listening, where am I at? How does it feel in my world? But please don't be unkind to yourself. I wish I could reach through your speaker and tell you to your face. And so listen with that image. Hopefully that's not creepy. And just say, hey, you can listen to this episode and think about your life and not get mad at yourself or negative or down. I get it if there's going to be a moment of disappointment where you think, that's not going so great for me right now. Okay, that's okay. You can call it out, but I don't want you to be unkind to yourself because life is all kinds of things. It's not a black and white situation. There's so much gray area. There's so much room for growth. It is never too late to make changes or adjustments. And sometimes it's just the most beautiful thing in the world to look at your life, and maybe it's messy and maybe it's not perfect, and also think it's great. And you can be happy even in the chaos and the messy. I do it all the time. That's a mindset check, right? And we're going to talk about that. All right, so there are all kinds of personality tests and life assessment tests and quizzes out there. I know this isn't really going to be like this because in my style, in my coaching style, honestly, I don't really use those personality and career tests because I have my own exploration and ways to ask questions and understand my clients and really listen to their heart and really listen to their mind rather than kind of assessing them on paper. That's helpful. At first, I do, like a pretty general information intake in the beginning of working with someone, but I don't really like to say, okay, question 12, let's talk about this. And because your personality says you're this, then this job isn't for you. I don't know. I don't think it's that black and white. Like I said, that's just not how life is. So I'll give you an example. There could be someone in the finance world who, if you looked at her on paper, you would think, oh my gosh, she does not belong in finance. But when you talk to her as a person, you realize that there's a passion behind the education in the world of finance. And she loves educating people and connecting with people on understanding their finances. So yes, there is a connection. And so there is a passion for that job, even though on paper, it might look like the completely wrong job for her. So I have a hard time attaching to on paper. I mean, you've heard this in relationships too. On paper, he looks great, she looks great, but in person and their personality, you know what I mean? So maybe a poor example, but you get what I mean. So I don't always use those. I kind of like to do my own version. But now, because of all of the experience I've had working with life coaching clients and career coaching clients, I've kind of put together this list that probably sounds familiar, but this is how I do it. Okay? So I am calling these the 6 pillars, the ABL life assessment pillars. Okay, there's 6 of them, and some of them feel a little like I've combined them, but hopefully it makes sense to you. Okay, so this podcast is about your needs. It's about having needs and making sure that you, dear listener, know that your needs are normal. Your needs matter. And so the first pillar, and I put this as number 1 on purpose, is your self-care habits. And yes, I'm referring to your health, how you eat, drink, sleep, hygiene, exercise, all of those self-care habits, right? But that also includes meditation and using your boundaries, and we'll get into that more. But whatever it looks like to care for yourself, that is number 1. So when you're looking at this as like an assessment, how are you doing in the self-care department? Are you eating healthy? Are you getting enough sleep? How are you taking care of your physical body? How are you taking care of your mentality, your mind? How are you nurturing yourself through life? I will tell you, one of the quickest ways to find out if you're taking care of at least your mental health is if it's real easy for you to say, oh my gosh, like I'm so stressed out. If that's a normal thing, there is a self-care need that is lacking. So one of the first things you can do is honestly go through these pieces of what is self-care. And truly, you might want to start with, what does self-care mean to you? What would it mean for you to truly care for yourself at the highest? What does that look like? And then, and maybe you're writing things down. You know what? Grab a pen and paper. You might want to do that. And decide which of those things are you really good at, which of those things need more attention. So when you're looking at each one of these pillars, it's what would be ideal and what is actually happening. And then that middle space, that's the disconnect, right? That's what needs your attention. So I'll give you an example, and then you'll see how this works throughout the rest of these. But as far as self-care goes, let's talk about, okay, maybe your healthy eating is on point and you're having a win right now. You're having a moment listening to me talk, saying, ooh, I'm good. I'm taking really good care of myself by eating really healthy. But as you're moving through the list, you realize, but I'm not getting enough sleep, right? And again, remember, self-care is defined by you. So you get to make a list of what self-care looks like. You get to decide which ones need more attention. Then you get to put some action to it. Make sense? Okay. Moving on. Relationships. I put this all into one category because even though there are several different kinds of relationships that you could have in your life, checking in on what your relationships are currently like is kind of a all-in-one thing. You really can look at all your relationships at once, right? Do you have healthy friendships? Do you have healthy relationships with your family members? Do you have a healthy relationship with your partner? Do you have a partner? And maybe this is the moment where you think, yeah, I have great friends. I love my family. I love who I work with. That could be a relationship too, as your coworkers, right? But I don't have that person in my life. That could be the part that needs more attention, which I know. It's probably already something that gets your attention and that you're completely aware of. But there are ways to focus on that part of your life, maybe differently than you have been. Are there relationships in your life that are not so good, that are unhealthy, that are overstepping? Are there relationships that feel toxic, that feel like there's no boundaries? Is it uncomfortable for you to be in a friendship or a relationship of some kind? And I get it. If it's family, you can't just X them out of your life. You can, honestly. But if it's a matter of, am I getting along with somebody, that could use your attention. How do I get along with this person better? What do I need to do? So a lot of times we move through life, and even if there's challenges, we kind of look at them as, oh, well, that's just part of my life. But that's not always the case. If it's sitting in your life in a heavy way and it really is weighing you down in some way, it doesn't have to be there anymore. And even if it's not getting rid of a relationship, but trying to figure out what you can do about it, it matters. You're allowed to do that. That's available to you. It's really interesting to me how easily all of us do this, where we accept uncomfortable things way easier than we accept doing uncomfortable things in order for it to not be uncomfortable in our lives. How nice would it be to release yourself of whatever that relationship is if it's been haunting you or bugging you for years? I don't know. Relationships. Check in. Okay, so number 1, self-care habits. Number 2, how are your relationships? Number 3, your job or career combined with your financial security. I put these both together. Everybody needs, go back to the basics, everybody needs financial security. So I put these together for one reason, and mostly is it connecting? Is your job or your career giving you financial security? Or perhaps you're in a relationship where their job gives you financial security, or together you are earning the kind of money where you feel financially secure. How is that? How is that going? And don't worry, even though I'm talking about career and job as far as financial security goes, I will talk about life purpose and career, and are you doing what you need to be doing to feel fulfilled in life? That's a whole pillar of its own. But this one is more specifically, how is your financial freedom? How is your financial security? Are you doing the things in your life right now that help you feel financially secure? If not, what needs to be done? Okay. Number 4, connection the feeling of belongingness, this sense of community, okay? Do you have a group? Maybe it's friends, maybe it's a volunteer group, maybe it's your neighborhood, maybe it's how you're connected to your kids' schools, maybe it's your coworkers. Every Friday you go out for drinks. Do you have that sense of community, that sense of belongingness? Do you have your people? And I get that this kind of connects to relationships, fine, but this is also a feeling. Do you feel like you have a community? And maybe you have more than one. How cool. And if not, does that matter to you? Most people, go back to the basics, need some kind of sense of belonging. It is an essential need. Go back to Maslow's theory. It is to feel like you belong. And maybe it's your family. Maybe you have a family of 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, and that is your community, and those are your people, and that's where you feel like you have your belongingness box checked. That's valid. Again, all of these are defined by you. You know yourself. You know your life. And if you don't, maybe it's unclear, this is a great way to move through and say, what actually matters to me? What actually matters to me? Please be asking yourself that question as I'm moving through these. Okay, so that's number 4, connection and belongingness, your sense of community. Number 5, your purpose and alignment. Okay, yes, this connects back into career. Are you in a career that fulfills your life purpose, that makes you feel like you're doing what you are here to do? And maybe it doesn't have anything to do with the job. That's why this is separate. For me, I'll give you my example. Yes, I'm doing a job that is very fulfilling and it feels like it's my life purpose. It's very aligned with who I am to be a life coach. But at the end of the day, besides how I make money, and how I serve, which really matters to me. For me, it's, do I feel at peace? Do I feel joy? If I feel at peace and I feel joy, I feel like I must be aligned. I feel like everything must be going well. That's kind of my indicator. So even though all of these pieces, all of these pillars matter, and there is one more pillar, so keep listening. Sometimes it's not always about what you're doing. It's about how you feel about what you're doing, or how you're living, or who you're serving, how you're operating throughout the world. What does it feel like? I do think that matters. And then does it connect, right, to actually what you're doing? Your feelings and your thoughts go together. Sometimes we really wish they didn't, but that's the human experience. It does matter. So if you are feeling a little lost in the, am I aligned? Am I living my purpose? If that's the hazy part, going through the rest of these pillars might help you find some clarity in that. But I just want you to rest assured that it's not always about the job. Maybe it's about the overall experience that you're living. Does it feel good? If someone just flat out said, hey, like, are you happy? If that's hard for you to answer, something needs attention. Okay, so let that be your indicator. All right, number 6. Your mental outlook on life and your resiliency. Yes, I put these two together completely on purpose because this is the category of how you handle things. Stress, good things, challenges, things that change, different things that come up and throw you off course. How's your overall mental outlook? Can you easily shift your mindset into a resilient mindset and be active in your life to fix or understand or just wrap your head around something in a way that's not harmful to you? Honestly, if you think about it, if you're looking out at the world and you think the most negative, awful things, that does reflect internally. That does carry out through the rest of your life. So when things are hard, this is a good example. How do you handle it? When things are hard or challenging, are you immediately like, everything sucks? Well, maybe your mental outlook needs some attention. But if something challenging happens and you immediately think, oh, okay, this is a little tricky, but I can get through this. I got this. It's going to be okay. That would be a positive mental outlook, meaning that you can handle the hard shit, but that doesn't mean you have to look at it like it's a blanket of bad news and negative, setbacks. It doesn't have to be that way if you choose to look at it differently. And the way this connects to your resiliency is if the really hard shit comes up and you initially have this more positive mental outlook, it could be something crazy, like you have to have a surgery. You didn't expect this. This happened to my sister. I don't think she'll mind that I mentioned this, but all of a sudden that feels doom and gloom and scary. And what the hell? Why is this happening to me? This why me stuff, right? And that's okay at first because you're a human being. It's totally okay. But if you can quickly get yourself to that positive mental outlook of thinking, you know what? I can do this. I'll be okay. Especially if you have surrounded yourself with your community, if you have strong relationships, if you've done a good job taking care of yourself. These things all play a role in this final pillar. They all help your mental outlook and your resiliency. So if you can initially think, okay, this thing's going to be really hard, but I have the support I need, I'm going to be okay, I can do this. If you are able to do that, oh my gosh, the strength it takes, by the way, to be able to take a very scary, big, overwhelming something and gain control anyways, and looking at it and saying, I got this, that is amazing. If you're able to do that, please give yourself a pat on the back. That is hard. But the really, really cool thing, and this connects to resiliency, is this is how amazing human beings are. You are that incredible that you're able to stare a challenge in the face and say, I got this, and be strong enough and resourceful enough and supported enough to be resilient, to come back from it, right? This goes into little spaces too. I mean, I call it little spaces, but there's little moments where you have to be resilient. Here's an example. You're at work, your boss is frustrated, has nothing to do with you, but you get the frustrated tone. You get the rudeness, which is totally unfair. But you have the ability to think in your mind, you know what, that probably wasn't about me. Maybe he's having a hard day. I'm going to be resilient and get through this, because if I make that about me, then I'm going to have a hard day, and I don't need that. And obviously that connects to boundaries. There are mental boundaries where you don't let things kind of take over your thoughts. And there are physical, that's a separate yourself from it physically boundaries. Go back and listen to the boundaries episode. But boundaries play a role in every single one of these pillars. That's why there's not a boundary pillar on its own. Okay, so let's connect all the dots to wrap things up and put a shiny little bow on it. Number 1 is your self-care habits. And yes, you need boundaries for those. Self-discipline, boundaries for yourself, that plays a role. So number 1, self-care habits. Number 2, relationships. Hell yes, you need boundaries in relationships. All right, this needs an episode of its own. Number 3, your job or career for your financial security. Security? I said that weird. Number 4, your connection and belongingness, your sense of community. Number 5, your purpose and alignment, which also includes authenticity. Are you doing something aligned with who you are? And number 6, your mental outlook and resiliency. I'll put these in the show notes so you can walk through them yourself. Nothing's ever cut and dry, black and white, like I said, but this is a good way if you're moving through these pieces and you are able to write down all the things that are going really well, the things you're doing well, and then you can maybe have a list of things that need your attention. Then you can break it down even more. Which of those things that need your attention really need your attention now? Then you prioritize your list. this is something I do as a coach, right? We can do this life assessment together and then decide which of these things actually need more attention. It actually might be very clear to you, even before you go through this life assessment check, what needs more attention. You might be listening to this podcast because you're very clear in your mind and in your heart what part of your life feels incomplete or feels overwhelming or feels like it needs to change. So even if you're very, very aware of what it is in your life that needs your attention, sometimes we still need that little nudge, that little reminder that these are your needs and they're important because you're important. This is why I say this in every episode and I mean it. And you are allowed to have a life that makes you wake up every day saying, hell yeah, look at me go. You do. And life's not perfect. It's not meant to be. You're going to have a day here and there that is not a good one. That's okay. But it's the overall experience, the overall view that you get to have of your life that says, you know what? I'm doing great. I am living out my purpose. I feel joy towards my life and the choices I've made. And again, I said this in the beginning, don't get on yourself if for some reason something's lacking, something's missing. It's okay. Be kind to yourself. And you can at least acknowledge, here's a little mindset tip, at least you're coming to this moment with yourself. You are seeking this moment with yourself of what do I need to give to myself? What do I need to do for myself? My God, please be so proud of yourself for that. That's awesome. Do you know how many people just go through life and just accept things even if they don't really feel right to them? Ugh. I know that happens sometimes because that's life too, but it doesn't have to be that way. So good on you for showing up today and being here with me. I love hanging out with you. Come back again next week. And don't forget, I will say it again. I will always say it. Your needs matter because you matter. Take care. Thank you for listening to the Needy Normal podcast. If you liked this episode, especially this episode, I actually have a life assessment session that you can purchase on my website at ablifecoaching.com. I also have a free resource which shows you the 7-step formula for moving through a transition with more confidence. So go check those things out and come back again next week. Every Thursday, there's a new episode. And don't forget to leave me a review. I would so greatly appreciate it. For more information about coaching together, go ahead and visit ablifecoaching.com.